Hello, and welcome viewers to Creepypasta Theater. This year, for Halloween, I thought it would be interesting to take a dive into the world of scary stories written by the community, centering around our favorite robot in blue. I don't think we need any further introduction than that, so why don't we blow on our favorite cartridge, complete the ritual prayers to make sure that it works, and relax, as we allow ourselves to become immersed. Mega Man X, the Red Cartridge, by Gustavo Firmino Cazonado. Hello, I'm one of those people that does more than play video games. I also make animations. I've gotten really good at Mega Man games, though I'll admit they are pretty hard. I found a copy of Mega Man X for the SNES on Amazon and not eBay. It was only $1 for some reason. I mean, not everything can be free, right? But I was pumped. Finally, I can play one of the best Mega Man games of all time. But then I realized I didn't have a working SNES, so I had to hunt one down, and I found one for $30 on Amazon again. They both arrived on the same day. I plugged in the SNES into the wall, turned on the TV, and started playing. Something was off, though. There was no copyright date. It just went to the Capcom logo, and it looked blood red. It didn't shock me because ROM hacks can change the sprites, but this wasn't a ROM hack. How could a ROM hack be sold? I went to the title screen. No intro or music, just silence. There was no menu either. It just went to the opening stage as normal. But the music was slowed down, but not to a demonic tone, and X was already in his full armor, but I didn't care. I went through the stage like normal, but then the screen went to static. I thought it was my TV, but then the screen turned black, and I thought I saw some text just say, "I will rule the world." Then the stage select came up. I chose Chill Penguin because it was one of the easiest bosses in the game. There was no boss intro when I selected him. It was in Chill Penguin stage like normal. It even played like the actual game, of course, nothing different until I saw Zero's helmet, and the music for Chill Penguin stage was slowed down. X was on his knees and closed his eyes. Then the background and stage went black, and then back to the stage select screen. This time, all of the Robot Masters were looking at a black spot, but it was from Storm Eagle's spot. I selected it, and I was at a creepy-looking place that looked like Sting Chameleon stage. Before I went into the boss door, Vile showed up and went right into me, and the background looked like it was in G major. The boss door opened, and X went inside the boss door. The screen went black, and then I heard X scream, but it sounded like the way he screams in the PS1 games, and red text saying,
"You failed your mission."
for a split second, and then back to the stage select screen for a third time. All the Robot Masters were gone, and only a fully armored X with no face could be selected. I selected it. X with no face was walking on his own. I thought it was a cutscene, and I was right. The faceless X walked up to a capsule. You know, the one where Dr. Light gives you the armor parts? But X already had them, so why was it there? But it turns out it was no Dr. Light giving you armor parts, but it was a non-full armored X. Then a text box from the non-full armored X said,
"You are not welcome in this world."
The screen went static, and then the screen went black, and then I saw a close-up of the faceless X. Then the faceless X was on the screen, with the text reading, "End of game," and "No more hope." And then he beamed up. I saw that the copy of Mega Man X I had bought was now a red color, and after that, I always called it Mega Man X, the Red Cartridge. But I would never
Play it again.
Well, that was certainly an experience. Who were we, mere humans, to be the ones to forcefully enter the world of our favorite video games? We insert the cartridge, we turn on the power, and through binary and lightning we are transported to these two-dimensional worlds, filled with their own rules, their own people, their own wants and desires. We look upon them as mere playthings to keep us entertained as we control their very lives, their every action, their every move. But perhaps it is not just a game. Perhaps to them, there is no more hope in being forcefully possessed by us. What a pitiful existence. To be them, it is no wonder that we would not be welcome in their world. Red is a color of caution, and to stay out. Soldier Down by Creepy PDT. I was never a big Mega Man fan growing up. The only experience I'd had with the franchise were the Mega Man Battle Network games for the Game Boy Advance and Mega Man Star Force games for the Nintendo DS. These, of course, weren't traditional Mega Man games. Frankly, the first time I tried a real Mega Man game, I hated it. The game was Mega Man 10 on the Xbox Live Arcade, and the difficulty astounded me. I quickly threw the game aside and never touched it again. It was about a year later, while I was browsing my news feed on YouTube, I noticed one of my favorite commentators was beginning to play through a game called Mega Man Powered Up. I'd never heard of the game before, but apparently it was for the PSP, or the PlayStation Portable. Over the next week or two, I watched every video he put out of the game, and in that time, I began to adore the chibi style of the game, and I became interested in playing it for myself. I phoned my local GameStop about holding a copy of the game for me until I found the time to come in, but they hadn't had any in stock for weeks. Before I hung up, the woman on the phone told me that a store a few miles away had a few copies. My dad always traveled in the direction of the store for work, so I politely asked him to pick one up for me, in return for me helping one of my siblings with a computer-related issue. When he returned home, he tossed a white plastic bag with the GameStop logo on the couch, and I quickly thanked him. I flew down the stairs and into my bedroom. I tore open the box, removed the disc, and popped it into my PSP. The game started up with a bright and catchy intro featuring some footage from the original Mega Man for the NES. I pressed start, having already seen the entire intro from YouTube. The main menu popped up with the usual options: New Game, Load Game, Challenges, and Options. I selected New Game, and I was thrust into the opening cutscene. Dr. Wily shows up and kidnaps the 8 robots built by Dr. Light. Mega and Roll hurry to the lab, where Mega begs Dr. Light to convert him into a fighting robot to save his friends. Afterwards, I played through the intro stage that wasn't very difficult, and fought a rather simple boss at the end. Mega Man did a victory pose, and I was brought to the stage select screen. Iceman, Fireman, Bombman, Cutman, Gutsman, Electman, Oilman, and Time Man were the stages available for selection. Where do I start? I thought. I flipped the difficulty to normal because I felt that even though it was my first time playing, I could probably handle it. That's where my experience began. A few weeks later, I made it through most of the levels with relative ease, and was only caught on the ultimate encounter with Dr. Wily. I had unlocked the 8 Robot Masters as playable characters and decided that, since I was stuck, I'd try playing as a few of them. I looked through my options, and in addition to the 8 of them, I had the option of playing as 3 variants of Mega Man, a multitude of different versions of Roll, and Proto Man, who I had downloaded from the online service the game provided. I looked over my options again. Fireman, Gutsman, Iceman, maybe. Well, I guess he's as good a place to start as any. I started the game with Iceman, and the opening cutscene where Dr. Wily kidnaps Dr. Light's robots played. It was altered just a bit this time to fit me being Iceman instead of Mega Man. I was thrust into the level selection screen, and I remembered that when choosing a Robot Master, the slot he had previously occupied on the stage select screen would have a Mega Man boss fight instead. I set off to defeat the 7 Robot Masters and Mega Man. Since Iceman and the other Robot Masters only have one ability throughout the playthrough, the game was a bit difficult because Iceman's Ice Slasher is weaker than the Mega Buster. I finally made it to Bombman, who I had remembered was Iceman's weakness, and I figured I'd try fighting him on easy mode. Bombman killed me easily due to the huge disadvantage I had. He deals double damage to me, and I only did half damage to him. Eventually, I was able to defeat him, and I was brought back to the level select screen with Dr. Wily's castle accessible. I looked at all the defeated Robot Masters, and noticed Bomb Man was the only one I didn't beat on normal. I tried normal mode, and to my surprise, I knew his pattern of movement. I dodged him easily, and attacked him over and over again until I was finally able to overcome him. "Yeah, take that!" I exclaimed. Feeling a bit overconfident, I was thrust back to the menu, and I decided to select hard mode and to try my luck once again. Making it through the level again was tough. The enemies were harder to attack, and I barely made it to a checkpoint before Bomb Man's room with 1 life left. I started into the room, and I just wish I hadn't attempted it. The cutscene started.
Bombs! Don't run off! Let's have a little fun with my explosives!
Whoa! Bombs are a little too old-fashioned for us soldiers!
That's too bad. You chose this fate.
Bomb Man did his opening animation, and his health gauge appeared and filled to the brim with energy. Stared in awe at it, as the usual yellow-gold color darkened into a crimson red. What's going on? Why is his health bar red? And I never heard him say that before. He was supposed to say something along the lines of, "You should have come yesterday. I had some big booms then." It was stupid, and I had always wondered about why they would make him say that, but what he said this time unnerved me. He began throwing bombs at me as I took off running, attempting to dodge the explosions. I began attacking him with Iceman's weapon, and to my surprise, it was completely ineffective. His new crimson-red health bar didn't deplete 1 pixel when I attacked him. Is this some kind of hard mode thing? I thought to myself. I continued attacking my explosion-obsessed foe, and I started growing hopeless. After 5 minutes, I decided there must have been something wrong. I went to pause the game and restart the level, but again, I found myself shocked.
You can't back out now. You chose this, remember?
When I had pressed the pause button, Bomb Man had ceased throwing bombs, turned to the screen, and pointed his finger at me. What's this? I stammered as I attempted to pause again.
You can't back out now. You chose this, remember?
Bomb Man then went back to bombarding me with bombs of all different sizes. I tried everything I could to stop the game. I switched the power off, the screen dimmed, and then reappeared.
Don't try to run. You chose this, remember?
I gulped. Why does he keep saying that? What did I choose? I had no time to think about it, for after he turned back to Iceman, he continued his assault.
Wow, you're a slippery one. Let's see you trying to dodge this.
I watched as Bomb Man began flashing yellow, and pulled out a huge bomb, began charging it up, and threw it clear across the stage right on top of Iceman. I saw half of Iceman's health immediately disappear.
I won't be defeated that easily.
He turned to face me.
Please, I know you can do it. Help me.
Iceman turned back to Bomb Man, and began dodging the bombs by himself. This caught me off guard. Perhaps Iceman was giving me time to think of something? No. No. That's impossible. This is just a game. These characters can't be speaking to me. I tried moving the control stick, and I regained control of Iceman. While I was trying to make sense of this, Iceman seemed to have changed. As I ran him back and forth dodging our enemy's onslaught of bombs, his face grew pale. His ice blue eyes widened into a look of pure terror. He looked absolutely scared out of his mind, and I realized why just in time. Bomb Man was charging up his super bomb once again. I figured one more hit would mean the end of the little ice Eskimo. The first had done half of his health bar worth of damage after all. Iceman turned to look at the screen once again.
Here it comes. You can do it, right? You can help me. Please help me.
He then began whimpering, and I saw azure tears rolling down his pale cheeks. What is this? This wasn't in any of the playthroughs I've seen. Why is he so afraid? This isn't real. This is just a game.
Please, you have to try. Without you, I'm doomed. Please, help me!
He screamed as Bomb Man hurled his hefty explosive into the air. I reacted as quickly as I could, and made Iceman run to the left out of the path of the bomb. It landed a few paces beside him. I realized that even though I had dodged the bomb toss, Iceman was still going to be hit by the shockwave from the explosion. Darn it, I almost made it. Now I'm gonna have to retry the entire level and face this weird boss battle again, I said angrily. Iceman turned to the screen once more.
It's alright. Don't worry yourself over this. It was foolish for a soldier like me to go up against Bomb Man. You tried your best to help me.
He closed his eyes, and tears continued to fall.
And I thank you.
He raised his hand to his forehead and saluted me. No, the screen. He saluted the screen. He doesn't know I'm really out there. He couldn't. It's impossible.
Well, champ, looks like you let the little guy down. It's all over now.
I noticed for the first time that Bomb Man was grinning. This was no ordinary grin either. It was a disturbingly full grin, one that stretched from cheek to cheek. His eyes were narrowed, and they were empty. No pupils, just white nothingness. What the hell is this? What's wrong with Bomb Man? Why is Iceman crying? Why are these two acting so out of character? This sight truly stumped me. I was watching Iceman standing stuck between a little space between a huge bomb and the wall, sobbing. Bomb Man flashing a wicked grin, awaiting Iceman's destruction, and then, all at once, the game changed forever.
It's been nice knowing you, kid.
He chuckled.
Goodbye. Thank you for your service.
He said as he slowly turned to look at the screen. We locked eyes, and I could only see fear. Nothing else. Every ounce of hope had been dashed from his face, and he closed his eyes again. After Iceman turned back to face the bomb, it exploded, filling the screen with smoke. And then came the scream. One that I'll remember for the rest of my days. It was Iceman.
Soldier!
Down!
It was painful to listen to. He sounded as if he was being torn apart piece by piece. He cried out in agony as the smoke cleared. There was where he had once been standing, was his torso. It had jagged edges where his legs had once been. It was missing one arm, and more importantly, his head had been disconnected and thrown across the floor, and was now sitting in front of Bomb Man. Bomb Man walked over to Iceman's disembodied head and faced the screen.
See, this is what happens to those who tempt fate. You chose this, remember? It's all your fault.
He pulled out a bomb and placed it next to Iceman's head.
Now watch!
Iceman's head was torn apart by the blast, revealing his inner robotic frame. His jaw hung open, and one of his eyes was shattered like a broken light bulb. The other was only illuminated slightly. Bomb Man kicked Iceman's head aside and crossed his arms.
Thanks for the victim, kid. It's been fun.
He turned to face the screen and flashed me a hard smile. His blank, unwavering eyes bored into mine. The whites of his eyes slowly darkened until they were black as charcoal, and his robotic coat began to rust. Chunks of his metallic shell began to chip and fall off of his body to the floor, and he began to chuckle.
I guess I've outlived my usefulness. That's how it works around here. When you stop entertaining him, you get junked.
He crossed his arms.
I'm sorry for what I've done, but there's no use saying it now.
His eyes lost their black glow. He ceased movement and fell to the floor. A menu popped up. Game over. The options available were Continue, Level Select, and Save. I noticed Continue and Save were both dulled out and gray in color. The only option available to select was the Level Select option. I was brought back to the Level Select, and I suspected something was off about it. My player had been changed to Mega Man, and there were 2 levels missing. Both Iceman and Bomb Man stages were missing, and yet I still had access to Dr. Wily's castle. Mega Man turned to face the screen. We didn't need them anyway. Come on! Let's go get the rest of them. I stared at the face of the blue bomber, not leaving his gaze for what felt like hours. What did he mean, let's get the rest of them? I already beat the game with him. I then remembered what Bomb Man had said before he had powered down. I guess I've outlived my usefulness. That's how it works around here when you stop entertaining him. You get junked. His words hung in my mind as I pulled the R trigger to enter the character selection screen. All the Robot Masters I had unlocked were present, and as I scrolled down the list, all their character portraits stared directly at me with a look of sorrow in their eyes. It seemed like they wanted to shout, "Help us! Save us from him!" But who was this person Bomb Man had referred to? Was it Mega Man? Did he pit the Robot Masters against each other and watch them kill one another for his own amusement? I gulped as I hit the bottom of the list. Iceman and Bomb Man were the last two options available. I highlighted Iceman and I clicked the X button. A distorted shriek came through the speakers. I attempted to select Bomb Man, an altered version of the same shriek I had just heard played. The screams sounded identical as far as I could tell to the characters' voice actors. Curious, I selected Iceman one final time, and I was able to make out two audible words from the pain-filled cry.
Soldier.
Down.
We all make choices in life we wish we could take back. But the true measure of a person is their ability to see their choices through to the end, no matter where they may lead us. No matter what the outcome may be, no matter how unnerved our choices make us feel. We must all take responsibility. Glitchman the Protector by Oztastic57. This is the story of Glitchman. He will always be with me. I never owned an NES, and I didn't want to buy one, so I just got an emulator on the internet. I got it from a place that no longer exists, and this was before I knew about cool ROMs. After the website went down, my emulator was deleted, but I still had my ROMs. All of them were normal, except for Mega Man 1. It warned me that it should only be used with that specific emulator, or else glitches would occur. So I downloaded JNES, and I tried all the games I had. All of them worked fine. I tried Mega Man last. It started normally, and I selected Cutman stage. I teleported in, but Mega Man was not Mega Man. His color pattern was changed. He was purple with gray outlines and two different shades of red eyes. I quickly got my camera and I snapped a picture. He looked as though he shouldn't have even been in the game. I thought it was just an error and I continued on. I got to Cutman, but he was not there. I took another picture and the screen faded, and it went back to the stage select again. Cutman now replaced Iceman, and two purple circles replaced where Cutman should have been. I selected that and I was transported to Fireman stage. It progressed normally and I fought Fireman. I was about to beat him, but the game froze. After taking another picture, I reopened the game. It started again, but instead of the normal start screen, it showed the glitched Mega Man, and it said, anytime you need me, say my name, and I will come. I am Glitchman. I didn't believe what it said. I knew it was glitching up, so I just switched to Legend of Zelda. I then noticed the battery on my camera had died. Oh well. I made it to the 5th dungeon, and I couldn't beat the boss. I got frustrated and I started yelling. I wanted to calm down, so I just randomly said, Glitchman. Nothing happened. I thought so. So I continued on, and I got even more frustrated at the boss. I wanted to calm down again, and this time I decided to just type out Glitchman on my keyboard. Suddenly, the glitched Mega Man showed up and beat the boss for me. I was so confused. He then disappeared. I booted up the games I had for JNES, and he showed up in all of them. I don't know how, but I am protected. But I Glitchman. Some people believe in guardian angels, entities beyond our understanding which protect us, guide us, and shield us from harm. They may take all shapes and forms, but in the end, they are here to be our eternal protectors. Consider yourself fortunate if you have been lucky enough to meet one, and pray for those who move through life without one. The Amazing Mega Man by Super Shadow Silver 69. Nice. July 11th, 1989. This is the date that Mega Man 2 came out on the NES. I had been long awaiting a sequel to my beloved Mega Man game, so when the time finally came and the game came out, I was ecstatic, and immediately went to my local game store once my parents got home. which, unluckily for me, was at 8 at night. Once we parked next to the building that beheld my coveted game, I burst through the doors faster than a bolt of lightning and rushed over to the man at the counter before my mother could even leave her car. A bit unnerved by my odd amount of excitement and the fact that I had appeared to be all alone, he hesitantly said, "Hello, and welcome to—" However, before he could finish his sentence, I interrupted. "Do you have any copies of Mega Man 2? The man, obviously caught off guard by my rudeness and my overexcitedness, quietly said, yeah, I've got a few copies left." The man then scurried into the back to get the hot-selling game, and walked back into the room, game in hand. However, at this point, he got a bit less jittery as he saw my mother standing beside me, assuring him that I wasn't just some juvenile delinquent running around without any parents. My mother asked the man how much the game would cost, and he told her it would be the hefty price of $20.99. My mother looked down at me with a scornful look, but I did my best puppy eyes, and eventually I was able to get my mother to crack. She handed over the wad of cash to the man at the counter, and finally, the game was mine. The car ride home felt like it took centuries, as I had to sit there waiting to play the game. But finally, after about 20 minutes, my game and I arrived home safely. The first thing I did was run into the living room and insert my new treasure into my NES. The game booted up as normal, but there was one problem that made my heart sink. When it was at the loading screen, it froze. I was horrified, and my jaw nearly dropped down on my chest. Acting quickly, I took the cartridge out, blew on it, and put it back in. I waited for what felt like ages for the game to start. However, all of my waiting was futile, as the game just wouldn't start. Both distraught and dismayed, I decided it would be best to just take the game out of the system and try the next day. However, when my hand reached the slot, the game randomly turned on, and for whatever reason, the TV was at max volume. After a loud scolding from my mother and her usual promise of chastisement, I made my way to the TV and I turned it down. At this point, I could care less about my mother's promises of chastisement or my nearly popped eardrums. All I cared about was playing my long-awaited game. However, I was incredibly confused when I picked up the remote. For whatever reason, I automatically started a boss fight. Bewildered, I just decided to pursue on and rely on my knowledge of the previous Mega Man game to help me through. I was quite surprised to see I got a boss that just looked like a mere fan. The top of the screen said, "Defeat Airman." When he hit me, I was brought aback by how much damage I had taken. I had to find a way to kill Airman, as I thought it was the only way to continue on in the game. After an incredibly strenuous and arduous half an hour, I finally found out how to beat the bastard. It was quite simple, actually, and I was angry at myself for not catching on to the strategy sooner. All I had to do was jump over him and hit him in the back a few times. Leaving me no time to recover, immediately after the battle, I was thrown into a battle with Metal Man. Metal Man threw saw blades at me, which I had to attempt to dodge. I was at a loss for words, as I had no idea how to kill Metal Man. At first, I thought I could shoot the saw blades, but that was to no avail. It took me upwards of 50 tries to beat the guy, and this time, the strategy to beating him was a bit more complex. I was shocked when I saw the next boss. The next boss was Mega Man. It was a mirror match. Mega Man versus Mega Man. The other Mega Man mirrored all of my attacks and movements. When I tried to shoot him, he tried to shoot me. It was damn near impossible for me to hit my opponent, but eventually I faked him out enough to land a hit. However, I was confused, as after only landing one hit, the screen faded to black. I was tempted to yell out at the game and just ask what happened. However, as I was about to, some words above the screen said, "Having fun yet?" I took the cartridge out and I stopped for a second. What could the game have meant? I pondered to myself for a while, cartridge clutched in hand. It was silent in the room. In fact, it was too silent. Just as I began to notice the eerie silence, Mega Man himself appeared on screen. I pinched myself, as I knew that there was no game in, and I needed to check if I was dreaming. The bottom of the screen said, "I'm having fun, aren't you?" Then it just went black for a few seconds. However, an image of Mega Man with a devilish grin flashed on the screen repeatedly. The more the screen flashed, the more detailed the image became, the more twisted too. Airman was hanging from a tree by what appeared to be his intestines. The graphics left much to the imagination normally, but there was no questioning it. Airman was hanging there by his intestines. The screen flashed more, and soon the image panned out a bit. It eventually also showed Metal Man. He had a saw blade jabbed into his chest, along with another slice on his face and body. I was confused, as I always thought that Mega Man's enemies were robots. But that was the last thing that I was thinking about at that moment. I tried calling out for my mother, but there was no answer. I tried to get up and leave, but I couldn't. I was unable to control myself. I was stuck there, like I was controlled by a puppet master in a sick play. I tried to scream once more, but I couldn't even manage to do that. I was stuck there, eyes fixed on the screen, and Mega Man and his fallen enemies' lifeless eyes just staring back at me. After a while, the screen stopped flashing, and the image just stayed on there. I was wondering where my mother was. Surely she would have heard my first cry for help and came down. However, no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't leave or scream. All I could do was look. Text appeared on the screen. Text read,
The more defeat, the more bloodshed.
After I finished reading the text, I noticed his devilish smirk turned into a perfect grin, as if he was both laughing at his murdered foes or at my indescribable fear. The game started up once more, even without the cartridge inside, and I was fighting another boss. I couldn't do it. I couldn't take it. I tried as hard as I could to break free of the curse that compelled me to the game and wouldn't let me out of its clutches. Finally, after nearly 10 minutes of struggling, I was able to break free of my affliction. I had done it. I ran over to the door. I was home free in a second, back with my mother where I was safe. However, as I went to turn the knob, an incredibly loud sound emitted from my TV. I glanced over at the screen, and the screen read, I wouldn't do that. I disregarded the text and went to turn the knob. However, as I did, I felt a sharp pain in my chest. The pain grew harder and harder and harder until it brought me to my knees. I just needed to leave. I brought my hand up once more, and I grabbed the knob. Soon, everything just went black. All that I can remember is the pain in my chest getting worse and worse by the second, and the words, I wouldn't do that, playing over and over in my head. To run away from one's problems is a natural instinct. The urge to get away can be so strong that you may feel the pain may kill you. We may seek comfort in our parents, loved ones, and friends, but unless we face our problems head-on, that tightness in your chest may never go away. In fact, it may just end up killing you. The end. It was an ordinary day at the Maverick Hunters HQ. A young and cocky hunter named Proxy was reporting to the central computer for a cyberspace training exercise. Behind him followed Batch, a rookie hunter in training. Batch had been assigned to work under Proxy and learn the ropes, but Proxy was not in the mood for helping newbies. Why are we headed down to the basement of the HQ? Batch, the newbie hunter, asked. Do you have to follow me so closely? Proxy asked as he rolled his eyes, strolling down the halls. Batch lowered his head. Sorry, I'm just excited to see you in action. You're one of those special A-class hunters after all. I could learn so much from you. Well, the first thing you should learn is to give me space. You talk too much. Got no idea why Command thought sticking you with me would be a good idea. I work best when I'm alone. Nobody to get in my way, Proxy said. But don't you think we would be so much better as a team? I just want to help you out. I bet if you could just train me, I could be just as good a hunter as you are, Batch pleaded. Proxy scoffed and shook his head as he approached the cyberspace facility. Just don't get in my way. Go sit in that pod over there, and after I jack in, you could follow behind me. Have you ever been digitized before? Proxy asked. Batch shook his head. No. What exactly happens? Proxy sighed as he waved to the operator to begin the procedure. Once you're in your pod, you'll be energized, just like when we teleport to a location for missions. Only instead of teleporting, your energy is stored inside the HQ's central computer. From there, we can load up various simulation programs for you to participate in. Batch nodded and looked on with wide and wondrous eyes. Wow, that sounds amazing. So, are you, like, actually in the computer? Proxy scoffed again. Of course, you're in cyberspace at that point. Anything that happens to you in there will feel like it happened to you for real, since it's actually affecting your data. In fact, we had a serious breach not too long ago. Some hacker bird or something got into our network and was really screwing things up. Lucky for you, he was taken care of, but his body was never recovered. Batch leaned in closely, placing his hands on the rim of Proxy's pod. Really? Why's that? But he got shoved away forcefully by Proxy. Get the hell out of my face, idiot! This isn't like playing virtual reality or something. You are actually entering cyberspace. If you die in there before your body is recovered, your data gets erased. You just fade into binary static. Batch stumbled backwards and gulped. So, doesn't that make this a little dangerous? Proxy rolled his eyes and gave a thumbs up to the operator to begin the transfer. Don't be stupid. It's just a training program this time. You're not gonna die, you big baby. Proxy's pod closed down around him with a hiss as he closed his eyes, slowly beginning to glow, until suddenly his body morphed into a ball of light which suddenly disappeared, transmitting himself into the hunter's central computer. The operator nodded to Batch, signaling for him to get into the pod next to Proxy's. Hesitantly, he climbed in and watched as the hatch closed around him. He closed his eyes and heard a sound like that of thunder, as though lightning had just struck him. In a flash, he felt himself falling for miles at light speed until the world around him came into focus. Proxy was already brandishing his saber, hand on his hip, blade held to the side impatiently. What took you so long? He asked. I thought I got in right after you. Sorry, Batch replied. Whatever. Just watch me and try to follow my lead, Proxy said as he waved his hand and a holographic menu appeared in front of him. He pressed a button and summoned a series of training enemies. One by one, they came after Proxy, who expertly cut them down with his saber. Batch watched with delight as each of the digital enemies split in two before exploding. He clapped his hands together with excitement, watching his superior show him how it's done. Finally, the last enemy charged at Proxy, who easily cut it to pieces, before a tone rang out, followed by the letter A appearing above his head. Off in the distance of the digital landscape, a large scoreboard appeared, showing the hunter ranks for the entire HQ and their scores for the training program. Proxy had a perfect score, never failing once. See that? That's why I'm an A rank. Now let me try this again on a harder setting, Proxy said as he pressed a few more buttons on the holographic menu. Once again, the training enemies appeared and Proxy began to cut them down. Unable to contain his excitement, however, Batch drew his own sword and shield combo and ran in to follow. It's my turn! I'll show you how good I can be! Proxy looked over his shoulder after cutting down one more enemy. What? No! Stay away or you're gonna screw up my score! Wait your turn! But as he spoke, one of the training enemies ran up and rammed into Proxy, followed by another, and before long, they all had ganged up on him. Met-tools, bone bats, and Hoganmers piled up and pummeled Proxy. Batch stopped dead in his tracks, shaking and nervous as he looked on as all the enemies vanished at once. After he had taken enough damage, a large letter F appeared above his body on the ground. He slowly picked himself up, feeling weakened and hurt from the brutal pummeling he took. You idiot! You made me lose my concentration! All it takes is one wrong move, and the enemy can get the jump on you. What if this was the real thing? I would be dead because of you, Proxy shouted as he angrily threw his saber to the ground, where it turned off after bouncing off the digital floor, creating a ripple. He turned around as a tone sounded off behind him. The scoreboard flashed, and his name went down one ranking spot, tarnishing his perfect score. Look what you did! You ruined my win streak! I'll never be able to fix my record now. Do you have any idea how many more rounds it will take before I can fix this? I need to protect my spot at the top. Now any old moron can come in and take my #1 position. Proxy yelled as he stomped over to Batch. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I just... Batch whimpered as Proxy went off at him. You know what? You being my partner was a mistake. In fact, you shouldn't even be a Maverick Hunter. You're too stupid and incompetent. You're just some giddy little kid who doesn't know how to be cool around someone better than him. You should go quit right now. In fact, I'm kicking you out of the system. Tell the crew I don't want to be disturbed. I'm going to be in here for hours fixing this mess. Proxy shouted as he waved and pulled up the menu once again, pressing a few buttons before ejecting Batch from the training system. Batch stood there silently before energizing into a ball of light and shooting into the sky like a laser, where he returned to the real world once again. A moment later, Proxy sighed and shook his head, accessing the training program settings and changing it to Do Not Disturb mode. Finally, I can train in peace without some stupid kid getting in the way. Honestly, he's going to end up getting killed if he ever goes out into the field. Actually, I might prefer that over being stuck with him as my partner for any length of time. Proxy said to himself. He made a fist tightly and opened his hand, digitally recalling his saber back to him. He ignited the energy blade and took a deep breath, calling up the training program once again. Now, let's try this again. For hours, Proxy trained on the highest setting, slaughtering countless digital enemies, slowly cranking his score back up to the impeccable level it was at before. He was driven to continue, bothered by the fact that his perfect record now had at least one loss on it. This went on for hours and hours. The passage of time was lost on him. Obsessing over his rank was the only thing he could do. He didn't just want to fix his score, he needed to exceed it. Finally, he finished the last wave. Exhausted and panting, he holstered his saber. Finally, all done. Proxy waved his hand and brought up the menu and pressed the button to exit. But nothing happened. What? He asked. He pressed it again and again, but nothing happened. Suddenly, the tone sounded off, indicating another round of training had begun. Without a warning, a swarm of bone bats swooped in and surrounded Proxy. It was like a wave, acting in unison, one which he surely would have drowned in if he hadn't begun swinging his saber wildly, cutting many of them out of the air. Finally, they flew away and dissipated off in the distance. Startled and confused, he tried to exit once again, but he couldn't. What's wrong with this thing? Operator, get me out of here. I want to disconnect. But there was no response. Operator! Anybody! He yelled. Suddenly, the entire world became black. What? What's going on? Am I still connected? The entire world flickered like a dying light, barely able to render his surroundings. Operator, something is wrong with this training program. Disconnect me immediately. Still, no response. Another tone sounded out, this time broken and crackling with static. Another round of enemies were summoned. They all closed in on Proxy, but fizzled in and out of existence before suddenly vanishing before his eyes. He swung at the empty air in front of him and hit nothing as the training targets began to behave strangely. They appeared and vanished rapidly, sometimes right side up, other times at strange angles. Some of them rendered only partially, with bits and pieces of them missing. Others were melting into digital code and fused with the floor. Operator? This is Proxy. Can someone tell me what's happening? Proxy looked down at his hands. They suddenly split apart in random places, sliding left and right, before suddenly jerking back into place. He shrieked and fell back. What's happening to me? Operator, the program integrity is failing. Batch? Anyone? Proxy raised his hands and waved it once more to call up the menu to exit the program. He watched as his hand disconnected at the wrist and slowly floated away before deteriorating into nothing but pixels. Shaking, he stared into his now empty wrist and could see a deep digital void right at the end of his forearm. Before he could even process what was happening, the void began to grow, slowly spreading up his arm. What is this? Stop it! In a panic, he grabbed his own arm at the elbow and yanked hard, pulling his arm from the socket. He screamed in pain as wires and sparks sprayed out from his shoulder. He was in pain, but oddly relieved that at least sparking wires and metal were what he expected to see. He threw his arm to the ground and watched as the void on his forearm expanded faster and faster before suddenly swallowing up his entire shoulder, dissolving it into data. Somebody help me! Something has gone terribly wrong! Batch! Anyone! Someone help me! The sound of an incoming user rang out like thunder. Proxy turned to the direction of the sound. It was another Reploid. Oh, thank goodness. Help me, please. I need to get out of here. The program is corrupted. If we don't disconnect, we might become corrupted too. As the figure approached, Proxy was able to recognize them. Is that Zero? Maverick Hunter Zero? What are you doing here? Where's the operator? But there was no response. As Zero got closer, a strange purple distortion began to cover him. Commander Zero, are you alright? What happened to your shoulders? Or your saber? What's going on here? Is this part of the training program? The Zero entity approached, and like a bolt of red lightning, his arm lunged for Proxy's neck and lifted him from the ground. The whole world fizzled in and out of static and strange symbols as they began to stretch across the landscape. Please, Zero, let me go, Proxy begged. Zero grinned wide and obliged by suddenly slamming Proxy to the ground and kicking him in the side, sending him flying. Zero, what's gotten into you? What's happening in this place? But as Proxy spoke, several more Zeros appeared, all walking together in single file before fanning out. Proxy blinked, and a crowd of Zeros became uncountable, extending around his entire periphery, each one sharing the same amused expression. No, stay back! That's enough! Let me out of here, please! Proxy begged. Seemingly, his prayers were answered as behind him, a door of light appeared, jerking left and right, up and down, spewing digital artifacts from around its borders. The Zeros closed in. They would surely crush him if they reached him. Out of options, Proxy scrambled to get to his feet and ran, diving into the door of light which closed behind him. Once again, there was only darkness. Am I alive? He asked. He looked around, but could see nothing. He leaned forward and immediately hit his head on a sheet of glass. Ow! He shouted as he pressed on the glass, forcing the latch open to his cyberspace pod. He stepped out, examining the room. There were no lights, except for a few here and there on the computer systems around him. He approached the main control panel for the cyberspace training program. The screen was black, save for the words, "User still inside, emergency power redirected, simulations still running." A moment later, it was updated with the words, "Cyberspace dive complete, shutting down." But this too was suddenly interrupted with the message, "Priority 1 emergency. Seek shelter immediately and await further orders." Looking around, he could sense dust in the air and a smell of rust. What is going on here? He asked to nobody in particular. He felt the crunch of glass beneath his feet, as well as loose wires and other various scrap. He looked down to see the floor was absolutely littered with debris. In fact, the entire base was now covered in scrap and fallen wall panels. In the distance, he noticed a familiar figure. Batch? Batch, is that you? He ran over to Batch, who appeared to be leaning against a wall. He grabbed him by the shoulder and turned him around, revealing lifeless eyes and a large hole through his chest he had missed before. Proxy yelled in shock and took a closer look at Batch's face after recoiling, seeing that his teeth were tightly grit with what looked like a series of wires and synthetic skin stuck in his mouth. Looking down to the floor, the operator lay dead, with her left eye missing in the shape of a bite mark, still gripping a depleted energy pistol. Batch, what the hell happened to you? What's going on? Meandering through the HQ, Proxy managed to stumble upon the command center. It was completely empty, not a single Reploid in sight. Alia, Cygnus, Douglas, X, Zero, none of the senior officers were present. He walked over to the computer in the center and brushed his hand across it, pushing away dust and grit. He saw that emergency power was still being fed to the computer, but it was in a hibernation state. Pressing a combination of buttons, Proxy managed to turn on the computer. The only file remaining on the system was a log entry titled, "The End." Opening it displayed a text file on screen written by Alia. "To those who remain, or those that might come after us, please know that we did all that we could. We're sorry. The Enigma cannon and Space Shuttle emergency response plans have unfortunately failed. We have no further viable response options and there is no other recourse. There are no positions to which we can retreat. Virus infection has spread globally and currently permeates all defensible positions. Estimates indicate a complete global extinction event. ETA for impact is expected within the next 2 hours. This concludes the service log for Senior Maverick Hunter Navigator, Alia. It has been a pleasure working with you all. Signed, alia. The following is a message from Maverick Hunter Chief of Command, Cygnus. In our final hours, please take comfort in knowing you have all done an exemplary job. But this was a seemingly unavoidable inevitability. All Maverick Hunters are hereby dismissed from all duties, and all Hunter-related operations are to be ceased immediately. Please be with your loved ones. May God have mercy on our souls. Maverick Hunter Chief of Command, Cygnus. Proxy stepped back from the screen. What? What's an Enigma cannon? What space shuttle? Eurasia crashed? What are they talking about? Proxy held his head, stumbling to maintain his balance. He grabbed a nearby desk and caught himself before turning over and stumbling towards the exit. No. This doesn't make any sense. I'm still in the simulation. This is some sort of surprise training. Commander Zero is just testing me because I'm a special A-rank hunter. He wants me to join his unit. That must be it. This is all still training. I just need to remain calm. As he fumbled his way through the halls, he stepped out of the main entrance of the HQ to a dark and purple sky, black clouds passing across the moon. He stared up at it in awe, its bright light catching his attention, looking for anything familiar in the landscape. As the clouds finally moved away, it was in pieces. The moon was in pieces. Looking around, he could see various streaks across the sky, fragments of it still falling down to the earth. No. This can't be happening. He looked all around him, spiraling dizzily as he tried to find anything that resembled the world he came from. Fallen buildings, half crumbled apart, supported by tenuously held together landmarks of the city's skyline. He turned to face the Maverick Hunter HQ he had just walked from, the last bastion of hope. Two massive banners filled his field of view, draped over the once proud building. A W, a Z, an X, and the Maverick insignia, in that order, from top to the bottom of the flags. No! Wake me up! Pull me out! This isn't real! This can't be real! He waved his hand, attempting to bring up the simulation menu over and over. Please. But nothing happened. Lightning split the sky and created a silhouette of 4 men sitting atop the HQ, followed by an ominous, rolling thunder. In the center, a throne, a tall Reploid with a red cape and glowing blue eyes, Sigma. To his left, the unmistakable outline of Zero standing beside him. To his right stood X, hand gripping his buster. And above the throne, a strange craft levitated, and an old man, shriveled, emaciated, and decrepit, with endless wires piercing his skull where hair once was.
I saw when the land opened one of the seals, and I heard, as it were the noise of thunder, one of the 4 beasts saying, "Come and see." And I saw, and behold, a blue horse. And he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him. And he went forth conquering, and to conquer. And when he had opened the second seal, I heard the second beast say, "Come and see." And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another. And there was given unto him a great sword. And when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, "Come and see." And I beheld, and lo, a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the 4 beasts say, "A measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny. And see thou hurt not the oil and the wine." And when he had opened the 4th seal, I heard the voice of the 4th beast say, "Come and see." And I looked, and I behold a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was White, and hell followed with him. And power was given unto them over the 4th part of the earth, to kill with sword, and with hunger, and with death, and with all the beasts of the earth. This is the end.
This concludes our content for the evening. I hope you enjoyed your time. I wish all of you a happy Halloween and good fall tidings. I will see you next year. Be well, and good night.